Hola guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Roxanne. If it's your first time here, then welcome. Today I want to talk to you guys about the last few books that I have read. So the first one that I want to talk to you guys about is Americanah by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. And this is about our main characters, Ifemelu and Obinze, who fall in love as they're going to college in Nigeria. And things in their life happen that lead them to sort of lead very different lives and have to separate. So Ifemelu comes to the United States to live with her aunt, and Obinze stays for a while in Nigeria and then moves to England to try and make a better life for himself. And it's their individual stories and then their stories together. And oh my gosh, this book was so amazing. I am so upset that I waited so long to get into it. What I loved most about this book were the intricacies of her observations of human nature and human interaction and couples and love and everything from activism to friendship. She gets so detailed in her observations, but it feels just so natural and so easy and so familiar, but also at times uncomfortable. And that to me was done so brilliantly and so beautifully, and the complexities of these characters are such that I see very rarely in books. They were so fleshed out. They were such wonderful, full human beings, human characters that I fell in love with so much. I didn't love one over the other. I loved them just as much. So even when we changed perspectives, it wasn't like I was always wanting to go back to the other character, which really speaks to how much I love these characters and how much I love the writing and how unique both of their voices are. They never blend together. There is so much commentary that comes through in the story. But it always feels very genuine to who the characters are. And to me, it never felt preachy. I guess maybe to someone who is less comfortable with what she's saying, it might feel preachy, but to me, it felt just like truth. And everything from the difference between an African Black person and an African American, and how they have to face Blackness for the first time when they move to the United States, and how it's very different than being an African American Black person. And it was just things that I had never thought of, but that just seemed so obvious when you think about it. And so this is just a story about two individuals living their life, falling in love, trying to make a good life for themselves, and through it so many truths are explored, so many ways of living and of thinking and of being are explored. And this is one of my favorite books of the year. It was amazing. I cannot wait to see it adapted into, I think, an HBO series. I think they're gonna get Lupita Nyong'o to be Ifemelu, and I think that is amazing because I could totally see her doing this character justice. I loved it. Please read it if you haven't yet. I then read 2 cozy murder mysteries. Is it a Roxanne wrap-up if she doesn't talk about a few cozy murder mysteries that she's read? So they're actually both in the same series. They're number 1 and number 2 in the A Haunted Library mystery series, which is a little bit different because I usually don't read haunted things. I usually read library things, but this was a bit spooky because, you know, the season and all. One was Death Overdue and the second one was Read and Gone. Death Overdue is set in the Halloween time, and Read and Gone is actually set during the Christmas time, and they're about this young librarian who gets offered the position to be the head of sort of events and programs in the library of the small town in which she is living, and things go awry, as they tend to do in cozy murder mysteries, and she has to solve the murders. I didn't like the first one as much. I didn't think it was as fleshed out as it should have been. It was very kind of convenient, which, yes, I know they are convenient, but more so than is usually the case for the sort of trope here in the cozy murder mysteries. But I liked the premise and the character enough to keep going, and Libby, I think, had the next one available, so I just decided to pick it up. I said, why not? And I liked it better. I thought that one was a little bit more developed, and I enjoyed it more. So if you're looking for yet another cozy murder mystery about libraries, then I read The Halloween Tree by Ray Bradbury, and this takes place on Halloween Day, where some kids are waiting to meet with their sort of best friend to go and visit the haunted house of their town for Halloween, and they're all dressed up, and when they get there, things get a little bit spooky and magical, and somehow their friend gets sort of taken, and they have to find him, and in their sort of quest to try and find him, they're taken magically through the different Halloween celebrations of different countries and different times, and it's a sort of a little, it's like a celebration of Halloween and a little bit of history and a little bit of magic, kind of all wrapped up into one. It's fun, it's quick, it's not terribly memorable, but I guess it's a cute read. Maybe if you have kids that really like Halloween, it might be a nice sort of tradition to read every year. It was fun. Do I remember a lot of it? Not really, but I'm glad I read it. It was cute. Then I read and loved The Library of Lost and Found by Phaedra Patrick. And so this is about a little, the synopsis says librarian, but she is technically a volunteer of the library who wants to become a librarian in the library. And her name is Martha, and she has lived her life always doing everything for everybody else, always, even if it means a great inconvenience to herself. She doesn't see it as such. She sees it as helping her community, helping the library, helping her family, to sort of the detriment of her own dreams and her own desires and her own life. So one day she's coming to the library to host an event. When she gets there, she realizes that the event has been canceled, and her bosses neglected to tell her, because that's another thing, is everybody takes her for granted, and it's really, really sad to see. So no one told her that the library event was canceled, but when she gets there, there is a package that's addressed to her. The book that was in the package sort of suggests that her grandmother, who she thought had passed, might still be alive. And so this sort of mystery takes off, and we get to see Martha explore family secrets, come into her own, and really, really gain some agency. And that is such a wonderful thing to see. This book was charming and cozy and lovely and heartwarming, and it was just such a pleasure to read. It was such a pleasure to see Martha's love for books and love for people, and her coming into her own, even as, you know, someone who's sort of past her, I think she's somewhere in her like mid to late 30s or 40s, so it's not like she's going to school, had just graduated school, and is sort of like reaching for her dreams. Like, in her mind, she's sort of past the time in which she could do something with her life. And so it's great to see her realize that that's not true, that she can still do something with her life, that she can sort of gain that agency and use it to better her life, and to actually ask for and demand what she deserves. And oh my gosh, there was like nothing that I didn't like about this book. It was so amazing. All of the great reviews that I read about it when it first came out were true. I devoured this book. I loved it so much. I think about Martha to this day because I could really, really relate to her, and it was amazing. I loved it very, very much. And I listened to and pretty much forgot The Body in the Library by Agatha Christie, which I think is like the 3rd book in the Miss Marple series. So what I'm gonna try is I'm going to read them in physical form. I don't know if it's just that they don't translate well over audio. I don't know, but it was just forgettable to me. Somebody's body ends up in somebody's library and Miss Marple figures it out. She was definitely a much more prominent character in this one than in the first, which was something of in the vicarage or whatever, which is the first Miss Marple, which is the first that I read, and I didn't realize that the Body in the Library was the 3rd and not the 2nd. But I think what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna read Agatha Christie in physical form. Maybe that'll, I don't know, that'll kind of make them stick more, because like I said, I had forgotten that I had read it, so that doesn't really say much. I enjoyed it at the time, I know I did, I just can't really tell you why. Then I read, let's go over here, The Bride Test by Helen Huang. This is Helen Huang's 2nd book, I believe, and it is about our 2 main characters, Esme and Kai. Esme cleans in Vietnam. She cleans hotels and things like that, and one night she's cleaning and she comes across this woman who is taken by Esme for whatever reason and decides to try and convince her to convince her, the lady's son, to marry. She wants her son to get married, and her son hasn't liked anybody ever really, and so she thinks, well, I'm gonna try something a little bit different and try to find someone for him, and that someone in her eyes seems to be Esme. So Esme is very, very poor and is a single mom, and as a means to get a better life for herself, she says yes, and she comes to the United States, meets Kai, and it's about 2 individuals just really getting to know each other when they're put together under very strange circumstances, but how they just learn to understand each other in ways that maybe others don't, or aren't able to, or aren't willing to. Kai has autism, and that is something that Esme doesn't really understand she doesn't understand what autism is, but as they communicate, she understands that this is just who Kai is, and once he communicates to her and once she communicates with him, they're able to come to an understanding, and she's able to see that, you know, like other people say, it's not that he's weird, it's just that he has different needs and different preferences, and she understands that and is very quick to learn and to adapt, and he likewise with her, and the communication between them becomes a really integral part of the relationship that I really, really enjoyed. I am doing a reading vlog as I read this, and I talked about how much I appreciated how they talk about the sort of sensory issues, and how he doesn't deal well with very light touches. They really, really bother him, and especially when they come, you know, as a surprise and he doesn't know that they're coming. And that just reminded me so much of my sister, who isn't as bothered by them as he is, as in it doesn't like anger her or upset her. It more just very, very much tickles her when you touch her very lightly, but she still will tell you to stop because it's too much. It's kind of like a sensory overload. And he, like my sister, prefers very firm, almost you're kind of worried of hurting them touches. Like my sister will grab my hand and press it down on her head, and she loves that. I guess she loves that feeling. I don't know if it calms her or what, but she just loves that pressure. And he talks about how he prefers and likes much more firm touches, and even hurting him feels better than those light touches. And so I think those are things that are so important to understand, and that you don't get a lot of, because you know there needs to be more diversity out there. And so I really enjoyed this. It was cute. Like I say in my vlog, which I don't know if will be up before or after this video goes up, but I do wish that they would have had sort of a bigger communication about her daughter. It was always present, but I felt towards the end like maybe it was a slight cop out to not have the conversation in the way that I think it should have. Like I just wish that dynamic would have been there more, and that conversation would have been more prominent. But regardless, I really enjoyed it. I loved it. I can't wait. I think she has another one coming out next year that I already can't wait to read. And those are the last books that I have read recently. These started out being 5-book wrap-ups, and they have since become just whatever books I haven't talked about yet. So as always, thank you for watching and for listening. I hope you guys enjoyed this.